Hello, this is Professor Wolf. We're going to continue with our exploration of the Java dialogs. Last time we saw how we could use the ShowInput dialog to get user input. And we saw that there's some complications. We have to use the try-catch block to catch the number format exception that can get thrown when we try to parse the string that we read in with the ShowInput dialog into a number. So now that we know how to do that, let's go a step further, polish this up, and create a looping version of an input method that we can throw into our SafeInput library that we developed previously. Now hopefully you'll see that basically this is just a reversioning of getRangeInt that uses the dialogs instead of the console input. There's nothing really new here. I'm showing you two things that I already did. I'm just combining them. But the code is sort of longish and doesn't fit real well on the slides here in PowerPoint. So I'm just going to go to NetBeans and show you this there. Here we go. So this is our input dialog loop. And here's our sample program that we've already seen that reads in two values and shows their sum. And so what we've done is we've created now this new getRangeInt dialog. So I just changed the name so that I'd have a distinction, because I might want to use both. I might want to have the console program in the library and use it, and then be able to use the dialog one when I want to. So if we look at this, it's going to be public static. It'll return an int. GetRangeInt dialog. It takes the prompt, the low and the high. One thing to note that it doesn't take is it does not take a scanner object like our other version does. Okay, that's because the dialog kind of handles that for us. The JOptionPane does. Okay. Okay, we have a variable that's a Boolean called got_it, which means we've gotten the number within range. So that's false initially, and we want to repeat until that's true. And then we have our return value, which is the actual integer, the number value that we're going to return. And then we have a string called response, which is the raw input that we'll read as a string. So, first thing to notice here is we have the do while, not got it. Okay. Then right within that, I have that try-catch block that we saw previously. So within the try block, the first thing that I do is I show the input dialog, and the prompt here includes the prompt message that we passed into the method and the low and the high. And again, this works just like the getRangeInt console version that we did previously. We go ahead and try to convert the response to a return value. And this line of code here is the code that has the checked exception. So if that fails, it's going to throw the number format exception, and that's why we have to do the try-catch block here. Okay? If it doesn't throw the exception, if it does throw the exception, the execution immediately goes to the catch block and it skips the code that comes after it right here. Okay? If it doesn't throw an exception, that means we got an integer. Then we go ahead and test to see if the integer's in range. If it is, then got it is now true. Otherwise, we use the JOptionPane show message dialog and say, hey, the number has to be in range. And then we iterate again the low and the high for the range. So it's always good to be really explicit to your user, and one of the things I always say is you speak in complete sentences. So I don't say the number has to be in range. I say the number has to be in range, and I show what the range is. Okay? Let's see. Okay, so here's the exception code. So if we get the exception, we also use the message dialog, but we just say you must enter a number, and we echo the response that we got, which was some string that could not be converted to a number. Okay? So this is going to just keep looping until the user finally gets it right. We set got it to true. So while got it, we don't have it, keep looping. And as soon as got it is true, not true is false, and then the loop fails, and then we return the value. So that's really straightforward. Again, it's real similar to what we did with getRangeInt. The only difference is that we're using the dialog to read the data, and so we have to use the try-catch block to format the data because of that numbered format exception. That's when we convert the value from a string to a number. So the program turns out to be really short. Basically, we go ahead and get our value 1. We call the method. It loops around. Eventually, it's going to return an integer value. And here, just arbitrarily, I made them between 1 and 10. And then value 2 will be the same between 1 and 10. We compute the sum. And then we use our showMessage dialog to output this. So let's go ahead and test this and make sure that this runs. I've got a bunch of files in here, so I want to make sure that I get the right one here. So I want to run this one. Okay, so enter value number 1 between 1 and 10. Okay, so let's try a value that's illegal, ER. I made a mistake and hit a typo. I hit OK. You must net a number, ER. Okay. So it comes back, and notice it's still on value 1, so it is looping. Let's try 23. That's going to be out of range. It's an integer, but it's too big. Number must be in range 1 to 10. Try again. Okay, so let's try 3 for this. And now notice it's prompting us for 2. We don't really have to test this. It's exactly the same because it's calling the same method. So I'll put in a correct value, which is 7. And then I'll go ahead and hit OK. And then it says the sum of 3 and 7 is 10. Again, that's a modal dialog displaying the message. I hit OK, and the program ends. So now, just to add this to simple input is very easy. So let's go ahead and do that. So getRangeInt dialog is my new function. I'm just going to go ahead and copy it. And I don't want to get that last brace there. That's the class brace. Okay. So now we'll go up to SafeInput.java. And there's my getRangeInt. There's my getRangeDouble. And there's my getYNConfirm. Pardon me. And I'm just going to paste this in right here after the end of the last method, but before the closing brace of the file. So we'll paste it in, Control V. Now, NetBeans says, oh, I happen to notice that you're using the JOptionPane, so I'll need to include that in this file. You want to do that? Hell yes. So hit OK. That's all good. No problems there. Now, to test our library, let's go on back to our main. And now I still have this selected. I'm going to delete it. And so right now we're getting an error here. So getRangeInt dialog, the compiler saying, hey, I don't know where that is. You don't have it anywhere here in this file. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use our SafeInput. I'm just cleaning this up here while I'm talking to you, so don't mind me. I'm kind of anal about having my code formatted. Okay, so these need to be changed to just call the method now from SafeInput. So SafeInput dot getRangeInt, and I'll just copy that. Come on down here, paste it in, and it looks like we're good to go. Let's go ahead and run this program. Control-S to save. Let's run this program one more time. So this is my input dialog loop file. And it looks like we're good. So I'll just try 4 and 6. The sum of 4 and 6 is 10. Okay. Program ends. So there we go. So we just added those in. And kind of makes sense to do that. And now we have that. Now you might be wondering, so when do I use the console input? And when do I use the sort of dialogues, the pop-ups? Well, generally, if you have a lot of data to display, it's not going to display real well in a pop-up message. So then I would use the console. But for any of these little short inputs, like give me a value, give me a menu choice, print out a very short calculation or something like that, then I would use the dialogs. So to give you an example, you could do the entire tic-tac-toe game in dialogs, but what you might want to do instead is do all the input with the dialogs and then just use the console every time you displayed the game state, where you show the whole board. That's up to you. You might be able to get the board to format nicely in the show message dialog, or as the prompt in the input message dialog. Okay, so play around a bit with these, but the best thing about them is that they're just a little friendlier to the user than using the console. And we've been running all these programs from within NetBeans in the IDE, but if you do a standalone program and you run it from the command line or from the system, then that's a different matter. And then I think it really pays to use these console dialogs. Okay, I hope this was helpful for you. And I think we have one more to do, which is sort of like a confirm dialogue, a yes-no type thing.